Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me in this special interview in honor of World Book Day. With me is special guest and author, Emma Meiko Candon, the author of a Star Wars Visions novel, Ronin. How have you been today?
I've not been bad. I've been very busy with my day job, but my wife bullied me into taking the day off because I was working very, very late at night on Monday, Tuesday. So today is just book writing.
We're here to discuss your book, Star Wars, a Visions novel, Ronin, which was released late last year. And this is a reimagined version of Star Wars set in the Japan feudal era. What were some of the Japanese narratives that you used that influenced you in the making of this book?
When I first got the script for the duel and was shown a very early version of the animation, it was, clear even then that it was very closely tied with Jidaigeki and Kurosawa. Jidaigeki being the period pieces, that's literally what it means. When those films were being made in school, in university, something I spent a not insignificant amount of time with was studying post-war Japan, in part because it tied in with my own family history, in the sense that World War II was felt very keenly by Japanese populations in the US. Not the same way it was felt in Japan, obviously, because it was different experiences. But everyone was walking away from that with a lot of trauma to process. And these films that Kurosawa was making, were in conversation with that history in the same way that all the art we make in any era is inherently in conversation with the era we're in. So when I was looking at the stories they were telling, my understanding was that these are unpacking a relationship with war, with violence. And so that was at the forefront of how I wanted to create this Star Wars story. And that was very well matched to the kind of character that they gave me, which is, the Ronin. Here is a man who's very, by definition, used to be a soldier, a warrior in service to something, and is no longer. So there's a very clear relationship between those things. I think the other Japanese influences would be folklore, which I am perhaps evidently very interested in. I love folklore of all kinds, but there were a lot of opportunities to bring that into Ronin as sort of the star part of the Star Wars, to put them together. I'm very into ghost stories. Also, Japanese folklore is very into ghost stories. So that was also something I was able to build upon to create the overall arc. And I've noticed that my brain likes 4 beats. In Japanese storytelling, there's this thing called Kisho Tenketsu, which is their sort of traditional 4-act structure, where it's introducing you to a concept, it's sort of building upon it for the first 3 acts, and in the last one there's a twist that reorients your understanding of everything that happened before it. And by the time I was done plotting this out, I was like, oh, this sort of very neatly illustrates that concept. Hooray!
As you can tell, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. In honor of this interview, I actually got this shirt that has Darth Vader, as a samurai, if you can see it clearly on the camera. But yeah, although this character does not necessarily appear in the book or in the episode in which we are going to talk about, I thought it was a pretty cool shirt. Anyway, moving on, can you tell us how you got involved in the project?
So I was brought on to the project in late 2020. And the project was announced in early 2021, only weeks after I was brought on. They had been working with the studios by then. Everybody's ideas were set in stone. And they had, of the potential shorts in Visions that they wanted to do a novel on, they had selected the duel. And that was when they went looking for an author to iterate upon it to create a book. They were looking for authors of Japanese descent. And my agent got wind of this and asked if I was interested, which was a funny question because I, like you, was deeply into Star Wars from a young age, and she knew this. But, she threw my hat in the ring, and I thought, like, oh, cool, well, my hat's, they'll have my information for the future. I've not published anything. They have a sample of my book, but whatever. But, like, what I heard again and again was, like, your sample was just so right for what we wanted. And I kept thinking in the back of my mind, this is very funny, because I wrote the first few chapters of that book thinking, make this your thesis on why someday they should let you write a Star Wars book. So, I knew I was auditioning for the job I wanted one day. I just didn't know it was going to come so soon.
I bet you were geeking out when you saw your name on an actual Star Wars book. I mean, for sure, I know I would have.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we all process our experiences in different ways. And for me, things that bring me that much joy, that much beauty, it takes them a while to sink in. So I'm in shock for a while. And then every once in a while when I'd be like picking my wife up from work, I'd have, oh my God, they're letting me write a Star Wars book. And I'd be in this kind of euphoria at the traffic light.
But going back to what you said about Kurosawa, for those who don't know, Akira Kurosawa was this legendary film director. And his film works, have been inspirations to many modern day arts, media, films. The particular title that I'm fixating on as I was reading Ronin was A Seven Samurai, because although I'm not saying that the book is exactly the same as the film, there are some characteristics and some features that were from the movie that I feel that they're in the book. Have you seen Seven Samurai?
I'm very familiar with it. It's like this. It's a classic piece of media at this point, in the sense that it's clearly entered the personal canons of so many different artists. I wasn't specifically thinking of it when I wrote it, in part because one of my first thoughts was, should I write Seven Samurai a la Star Wars? And I ultimately chose not to follow that route, because that would have involved, fixating on a particular location and really digging into, and here's what we're going to, here's how I'm going to create the homage. But at the same time, it was very, very married to the same ideas that are present in Jidaigeki, which are what is a samurai anyway? Is he just a jerk with a sword? Sometimes, but what is he supposed to be? That entered into a lot of the way I was thinking about Jedi and Sith.
Yeah, and again, at some point, I know for sure that George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, said in an interview that the Jedi are actually based off Japanese samurai, and this is obviously seen through the whole Master Padawan thing, the Jedi without a master, aka Ronin. The whole original Star Wars series is based on, or rather has a homage to Japanese culture, I think.
Yeah, no, I think I've been saying a lot is that there's a lot of Japanese culture already deeply baked into Star Wars. And so this was an opportunity for me to highlight some of it, or to kind of have a conversation with the way that, these original seeds of ideas have grown into something else entirely. Because certainly if you know what a samurai is, and then someone tells you, oh, Jedi are based on samurai, you'd be like, oh yeah, I see that lineage. And for me, this was an opportunity to take all that and sort of bring it closer to that original seed. So again, it's an iteration, but it's about having a conversation with the canon and the canon's lineage.
Let's talk about the main character, Ronin himself, because Ronin is rather an interesting character because he has this mysterious demeanor about him. You don't know who he is. You don't have a name. You hardly know about his past. In fact, in the episode Star Wars The Duel, you don't see his past. You don't get a name. Just that mysterious background to the character makes him so intriguing, so interesting. And again, there's hardly any personality that goes beyond this rather reclusive personality he has that fuels more that mysterious nature of the character.
Yeah, no, it was just such a good opportunity. That character is by the time you've seen through the end of the animated show, you're like, who is this guy? I gotta know. And I was told, like, these were the 4 shorts. We were sort of like juggling back and forth, figuring out which one we wanted to turn into a book. But at the end of the day, it was pretty clear to all of them that the duel was the one they thought had the best potential for that interpretation. I was really interested in watching everyone's reactions to Visions when it came out, and the episodes people were gravitating toward. And a lot of them were like, oh my God, can we get like a book of the Ninth Jedi? And there I am thinking like, Ninth Jedi, it's not a book. It is a TV series. Like, you won't get the story you want out of a book. You need to understand that like these are different storytelling formats. They chose the duel because it had a very natural relationship there, because that character is so instantly fascinating and instantly charismatic. Like, you want to understand what's going on there.
Which again, I hope that still stays intact. I haven't finished the book yet. I'm halfway through it, but I hope that mysteriousness of the character stays intact.
The only thing I will say, no spoilers, is that in the first conversation I had with my editor, when we were talking about the guy and we were talking about the studio notes we got that, we had to be sure to cleave to at every step of the way, he was like, so this is the Ronin, and like he's telling me these things about like his character. And then at one point I went, oh, he's Batman. And Tom went, yes, he's Batman. He's not Bruce Wayne. He's Batman. I was like, no, I get it. I've watched Batman Beyond. I remember that episode.
So for those who have seen the episode, The Duel, but have not read the book yet, how would you convince him, or why would you convince him to read the book?
Promises made in the short and doing its best to like expand them into the shape of an entire universe. Like, here is a version of Star Wars that's more feudal, that's aesthetically its own character, and that has a clear difference in the way its sense of alignment with the Force exists. This entire thing was me trying very hard to create something that was Star Wars, but felt at the same time totally unique from it. It's a very, very loving alternate universe. Came from a place of me also being a Star Wars fan. And for me, it was an opportunity to celebrate and dig into everything that I adored about Star Wars in a way that was trying to, again, just have that conversation with it, to see where it could be pushed, see how it could be iterated upon. So it is a love letter to Star Wars while being in this sort of wonderful new place of adjacent to Star Wars rather than firmly entrenched in the canon. I've also heard from some of like the mega fans that I've interacted with that there's something really exhilarating about reading something that's not canon, because you just don't know what's going to happen next. All you have to follow are the themes that you know are in Star Wars and the kinds of stories that Star Wars tells you. But as to what event this is all leading to, it's all just a huge mystery. So I understand that was fun for a lot of people too.
So how long did it take to complete the book?
I was given 3 months, so 3 months. Like, there were revisions after, but that was the first draft.
So now that I had the book in my hand, and I've been having it in my hand for quite a while now, let's talk about the physical aspects of the book, because this is a really cool jacket. I mean, the art inspired from the episode. But what I got here is the exclusive Barnes & Noble version, which includes this amazing artwork of a poster, which features, the Ronin and his sidekick. And on this side, it has the Ronin himself ready to duel out with his Japanese-inspired lightsaber there that you see there. And going back to the cover itself, I think it really depicts the Ronin for who he is. Even in the artwork itself, you really don't see any emotion coming from the Ronin, I think. You just see this determined face to do and complete the task at hand and not really care about anything else, even though he is living in the present.
Kotaro Chiba is the guy who did the cover art. Kamikaze Doga is the studio that did the short. But you can find Kotaro Chiba on Instagram. I can't remember his handle, but just search him. His art's phenomenal. I love it. It's just his lines are so delicate, and his use of color. He often works in these sort of grayscale patterns, but it's just mesmerizingly good.
So going back to the episode itself, the duel, what would you say is your favorite scene from the episode?
There's a part I always get really excited about, and it's in part the score, but it's in part that I just love her. When the bandit rises out of that transport, and she has her cloak, and that stupid, wonderful lightsaber lights up, and the way she lands with such a weight, and you're also like, oh my god, she's doing this whole thing in heels. This lady's crazy. I love her. She's so good. She's so ferocious and feral in her fighting. It wouldn't be as upsetting to watch her kill the bounty hunters if she weren't so vicious. Because you don't know who these guys are. You barely care about them. Maybe you have like a particular attachment to this or that kind of Star Wars alien, but just watching her do this, it's just, ooh, I'm tense because she's so scary.
How was the feedback towards the book from fans?
I've met a lot of just intensely lovely people. And everyone I've spoken to has just been so wonderful. And I have to be really careful with how I use social media, because if I'm not careful, it'll get into my brain and then it'll affect my ability to write. And I hate that. And that's not even because like people are mean to me on the internet. They're not. People are really nice to me on the internet. So yeah, but like everyone I've interacted with has been just fantastic. I'm so grateful that they've been so receptive to something that is really not what we're used to, because Visions was itself supposed to be this neighbor to canon, and this book is a cousin to it. But I was welcome to the family regardless.
Yeah, well, I can agree as well. I mean, the alternative universe that you see here in the book, or rather that you read here in the book, I think it goes parallel to the original Star Wars lore, canon lore. At the same time, I can see how they can connect, the Ronin character into the Star Wars canon universe. And personally, I would love him to interact with Ahsoka Tano just because of that contrast between good and evil, or good and light. But yet you have that defection from their own group of people, if you will. Ahsoka Tano left the Jedi Order, and of course, the Ronin left the Sith order.
We'll see what they do. That's not my choice. People have asked me, like, who would you want to see this guy interact with in canon? I'm like, this is hard. Writing this man gave me a new appreciation for Anakin Skywalker, because there's the other character we know who had his trials and travails with the Jedi until he gave in to despair and became something he no longer recognized as himself. And as I was writing the Ronin, I was like, okay, I see what I'm doing here as like a kind of parallel to this story, which it should be, because the whole thing is supposed to be a response to Star Wars. Not like an argument with it, but again, just like, let's move this story back and forth into other versions of itself. And the Ronin, as I've written him, is like, he's in his 40s. He's seen some shit. He's very tired. And if he met Anakin at any stage of his life, he'd be like, oh my God, go take a nap. This is not doing it for you, bro. So I love that. I don't think Anakin would listen, because he's very deep in his feelings all the time.
Yeah, and as you'll read throughout the book, he'll meet people that will make him stop and think and reflect on who he is, and thus revealing a bit about his past and the reason why he is who he is. That is seen even with the droid he has, because, again, this Ronin, he seems to be on his own, but yet has a companion. So there's that need for companionship. And like it or not, in the book, he meets people that, again, make him stop and reflect on who he is, what he's doing, why he is the way he is.
You gotta wonder, like, why is his answer to whatever he's doing, I'm gonna go murder a bunch of people? Like, okay, my dude. There are other options. But no, this is the one he chose. Part of what was important for me there was like, he probably had opportunities to not be the person that he is, or the person that he was, or the person that he became. And I think he was making the best decisions that he could, but he was also deprived of a lot of opportunities to be better for himself and for others. And the people he interacts with in the book are there in part to create challenges for him, but also to create opportunities to become someone new.
Can you explain the character development that you went through from the character that we see on the screen, which offered limited insight into who he is, to the character we read in the pages of this book?
Well, I took exhaustive notes on both the script, the original script, which is not like a one-to-one with the script in the animated thing. So like what I could glean from the original idea of the character to understand where he was. And then I was digging into all of those Jidaigeki films and Kurosawa's work and other stories and my understanding of that time period to try and build a world to understand like how he could have come to this point from somewhere else, because I needed to know what that landscape looked like to understand how it would end in him. And then it was a question of like, what are his problems? Because that's how you start a book, right? You figure out what's bugging this person, what's not working for them, both because of what the world is doing to them and what they're doing to themselves. Confronting him with, again, challenges and opportunities to have to create new answers. And the ending is also a matter of me looking at Star Wars as a whole and going, what makes a Star Wars story a Star Wars story? What are the themes? What are the feelings? What should I be trying to evoke for the reader in terms of this man and his arc within this kind of universe? And again, no spoilers, that was what I tried to do. And I think I did. I'm still satisfied with the ending I chose. And I'm satisfied with how it came together because I spent a lot of time thinking about how to do it in a way that felt honest to both worlds I was working with.
With all that being said, what was your favorite part about working on the book?
It's hard. I liked so much of it. There were some conversations that came very easily to me because I like knew that they were some sort of emotional core. And so they had been in my head in some version, maybe not in their specific words, but I knew the dynamics I wanted to have on the page. Part of what was really exciting about that was knowing in advance the kind of resonance I wanted them to have, because that's not present in a book that you're working on your own. Like in a book I'm working on my own, I can do whatever I want. And that's freeing, but it's also very daunting a lot of the time because I don't necessarily know, well, how do I want this to feel at the end of the day? Do I want this to be joyful? Do I want this to be melancholy? Do I want this to be sickening? Like what's the vibe? But Star Wars has its vibes. And so it was about creating new conversations, new contexts to tap into that same kind of exhilaration in all its different forms.
There's an audiobook version of this out there. Have you listened to it yet?
No. One of my Asian siblings told me like last year, oh yeah, I've never listened to any audiobook of any of my published works. And I thought, why? That's crazy. But now I understand. It's just scary. I don't want to do it. My mom was listening to it in the car once when she dropped something off and she was like, oh, you don't want to hear this. I was like, no, turn it off.
No, yeah, I can understand that because I think what makes an audiobook great, aside from the author themselves, is the narrator. You know, you always got to make sure that the narrator not only fits the character that they're reading, but also fits that tone of voice. And not every narrator can hit that voice for that particular book.
When I saw who they had picked, I was like, oh, okay, so a veteran actor. His voice is beautiful. I've heard snippets of it, but again, I just can't do it because, and that's a me-based anxiety based in like something that I now know can happen to authors. Like, I'm sorry. Thank you for doing this. I can't engage.
So we're almost at the end of the interview, but before we go, are there any last messages or statements you'd like to say to your fans?
I wrote it to be a gift to people. Like, that was what I wanted. It was a gift to write it, and I wanted to be able to extend that to other people in that same fashion of like, here's the kind of story that I'm writing in part for the little 9 through 14-year-old me who was in the library steadily reading every single volume in the old EU that they could get their hands on. This is the kind of story that I want other little me's to have in their hands. I'm writing it for you.
Are there any current projects you're currently working on?
So we're finishing up line edits on my debut original novel, and this is the one that got me the job. So if you like Star Wars, take a try. It's big sad robots in the post-apocalypse, divine AIs, fraught queer romance, and it's called The Archive Undying. And it's coming out with Tor.com. And I'm currently working on the sequel.
We'll definitely be sure to be on the lookout for that.
If you like big robots and weird mechs, come on down. My editor and I make a lot of Evangelion jokes.
You just had me at Evangelion. Thank you so much, Emma, for joining us today. It has been a fun and interesting interview.
It's been lovely being here.
So guys, in honor of World Book Day, we are giving away a signed version of this book, Star Wars Ronin, a Visions novel. All you have to do is comment below as to what is your favorite book and why. Show me that you guys have read at least 1 or 2 books. It could be anything, including light novels that inspired mangas, of course, why not? So again, tell us what is your favorite book and why, and subscribe to our channel. That's all you gotta do to win a signed version of Star Wars Ronin, a Visions novel. With all that being said, thank you so much for joining me in this special interview, and I will see you guys next time.